Welcome everyone to the special meeting of the Council of Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc on Monday, May 13th. Roll call, everyone is present. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? See none. Have someone bring a motion to approve the agenda. Councilor Brandon, second by Councilor Hippel. All in favor? Opposed of any? Carried. We do have one item of business is fire department. Can I have a motion to receive the report first? Councilor Kennis, second by Councilor Brennan. All in favor? Opposed of any? Carried. Before we vote on the motion, we either the deputy chief or Director Dakin or the CAO, whoever wishes to speak to the report. Go ahead, Chief.
Through you to the council. As you all have been aware, there was money in the budget set aside to replace engine 31 in this year's budget cycle of I believe $750,000. Knowing this has been coming for a long time, we've been researching the cost of new apparatus and options to make sure that we stay within that number. And for the last few years, the department has always purchased what they class as custom cab trucks, which are essentially exactly as it sounds. It's a hand-built cab for the truck. In looking at the pricing for new custom cab trucks, as the report alludes to, we were getting quotes anywhere between $900,000 and $3,000 and $1.2 million, which, given the current fiscal state of everybody, that's a lot of money. So we were looking for other options. We did do a considerable amount of research and door knocking to potentially buy used apparatus. Most of that, unfortunately, though, came out of the US. So the dollar figure that you were looking at, say, hey, that's a great deal. As soon as you then add the 38% exchange rate on it and then have to go and get it from wherever, it became not such a viable option. We were at the Ontario Fire Chiefs Trade Show again, so as we could speak with domestic suppliers, and in doing so, we started to look more at what's classed as a commercial cab vehicle. Essentially, that's in this instance, it's a Freightliner chassis with some modifications to it, specifically to the suspension. But on the back of that, they mount the fire engine piece, the lockers, the pump, and everything else. So the difference in price between a custom cab truck and a commercial truck is anywhere between $300,000 and $400,000. Understanding again, where things are financially, we took a long, hard look at that, and the particular unit that we became interested in was at the right price, came in at $685,000 Canadian. This particular unit, and the reason that I do appreciate you allowing me to speak to you in front of your scheduled meeting, also qualified for some additional discounts through Canoe, which is part of, I'm given to understand, an AMO pricing program of an extra $35,000. So it's taken the price of this particular unit from $685,056.87 down to $649,000, $343 even. Obviously, that's a considerable saving. That's $100,000 less than what we budgeted for, which must be music to your guys' ears, because that's not normally what happens. It gives us everything that we want from a fire truck. Ideally, we would love a custom truck, a custom cab truck, but given the circumstances financially, the differential is just it's not there. Everything from behind the back door of the apparatus is exactly the same as would be put onto a custom cab. So the business end gives us that. It gives us the everything we need to do the job. The front end, because it's a Freightliner truck, and that they make hundreds of these things, it brings that cost down considerably. So that's the situation we're in. We're looking to replace engine 31. We're having some discussions around deployment, whether it will essentially go to, we might put the tanker that's at Station 1, the tanker pumper at Station 1, and send it to Station 3, and put this new unit there as a second out pump, or just put this straight into Station 3. It's going to be, we've got to look and size up to see the equipment, whether it will go onto what is currently engine 12. I think that sums it up. As I say, we've been looking at this now for 6-8 months. Would we want a commercial, a custom cab? That's the way we'd like to go, but obviously $400,000 over what we've already budgeted is just not, it's not a fair ask to you guys. Hopefully coming in $100,000 is a bit more of a fair ask, and we'll be able to proceed with this. The reason, just to give you back, why we came pushed to get here today was vacation on our side, and this truck is going to be, if we don't buy it today, is going out west to a trade show, and another unit wouldn't be available till later on in the year, and we don't know if that unit would also qualify for the canoe source well discount, which again is $35,000 additional savings. So, if there are any questions, by all means.
Yeah. Any questions? Oh, sorry, CAO.
Through your worship, if I could ask our Director of Finance, Mr. Dakin, I think it's important that council is aware of the financial implications and the truck going to Station 3 and how this works in regards to the budget, because this is a key piece that I think council needs to be aware of.
Thank you. Through the chair to council. So the original discussion was to buy a truck for Melbourne. The way it works with Melbourne, anything purchased in Melbourne is 48% funded through Southwest Middlesex, so they pay for 48%. So that's why you see the calculation part underneath the financial implications. So the discussion was then, typically what would happen is if this truck was purchased and put in Melbourne, then they would be responsible for 48% of the, in this case, loan payments, because that's how this would be funded, is through a loan. So with the discussion of now moving engine 12, so the bigger engine, as I understand it, out to Melbourne, this would then come in to the Station 1. So what we would do is we would take the current value after depreciation on the engine 12, calculate the 48% on that. That's what the contributions would be. So as you recall, engine 12 we're funding through our sort of internal loan, I guess the best way to put it. We're charging the department and then putting that money back into reserve to cover the cost over the same time frame that we would have done with the infrastructure loan. So what we're doing now is gonna take the calculation of the interest or the payments that the Southwest Middlesex would make on the engine 12. That would go against the payments that we would be making on this new purchase. So that kind of explains how those numbers flow under the financial implication. So that's when you see down the annual payments on this new vehicle would be about $82,000. 32,800 would come from that Southwest calculation, and the balance of the 49 would come from the Strathroy-Caradoc taxation, which is what we had sort of looked at, the 750,000. So I think that explains, hopefully, how that calculation works.
Go ahead, CEO.
And sorry, just to add to that, so the engine 12 is a 2022 purchase, so it's a new purchase, and it is has a larger water tank. So Deputy Chief, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that would mean that by putting tanker 12 in in Melbourne, that there would be the equipment in Melbourne would have the larger tankers for the area that does not have the infrastructure.
Yeah, you're correct. They would certainly have more water on hand right off the bat to start any fire attack that was required. It takes the supply up by another 500 gallons, which is a considerable amount.
Questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hippel, I was thinking.
No, that's okay. Sorry, yes, I'm not, through yourself, to either Deputy Chief or Director Dakin. So just an easy, by the way, congratulations, I think this is amazing. Nothing ever comes in under, ever. So this is pretty great. But the southwest portion, I'm just curious. So I know that we have an agreement with Southwest Middlesex. The loan is for 10 years, so they would be obviously paying through that. So how long is our agreement with them? Is that 10 years? And if not, how does that work in case of, in case of?
No, Director D.
So, through the chair to Councillor Hippel, so our agreement currently is, I think, a 5-year, if I'm not mistaken. We are looking at expanding, I think it runs out this year, if I'm not mistaken, so we're looking at expanding that to a 10-year agreement. However, technically, we would have the ability to bill Southwest Middlesex right up front for their 48%. They have reached out and said, we're amenable, if you are, to sort of making annual payments as opposed to they would prefer, to be honest, to make annual payments as opposed to the lump sum. So those would jive. So I think what we'd probably have to do, I think just to cover in case that 10-year agreement doesn't become available, that we would get some sort of agreement in place that would just be on this specific apparatus, just to make sure that we're covered off, that we're gonna get our 10 years payment if that's what works out.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Wilsey. Sorry, I'll get you next, Deputy Mayor.
Just looking at the numbers, when we calculate the 48%, it looks like that was done on the new unit, even though the existing engine 12 that's being transferred has a higher value than the purchase. Depending on how we transfer and how they go, would the 48,000, the 48%, which would be 30,000, would that increase if we transfer engine 12? Or are they going to pay the cost of engine 12 even if we transfer the higher value asset to Melbourne?
Director Dakin.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey. So if you look, the top first sentence within the financial implication talks about the value of the engine 12. So if we took that engine 12 with the 10 years, about 68,400. 48% of that's at 32. That's how we came up with that. So then the new purchase, obviously, once we do the calculation, you're looking at, we'd be financing 660,000. So those payments would be about 82,000. The difference is because of the interest rate. So as you recall, there's no interest being charged to ourselves, obviously, on our engine 12. So it's just straight 10 years, that value, the 684,000 divided by the 10 years.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Answered my question.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Tolman.
So I somewhat feel like
Microphone there, Councillor.
we're letting Southwest Middlesex off the hook here. And perhaps maybe we should be charging them an interest rate that we would have borrowed if we had borrowed from someone other than ourselves. My first thought is, why are we not putting the new equipment in Melbourne? But I think you've satisfied me there that that's actually an operational benefit to the Melbourne Hall. But I still feel like they're getting off easy by borrowing from us at 0%.
Do you have a follow-up, or is it just a comment, Councillor?
Just to add on to that, there's two ways that they're getting off. They're not charging interest, and we're actually not charging on the HST that we already paid on the unit as well, I don't believe. So they're not paying HST or interest on their 48%, by what I can see in this report. So we're letting them off two ways.
Direct ask then, Director Dakin, is there, other comment by Councillor Pelkman and Councillor Wilsey, is there room to fix that or amend that?
Through the chair to Councillor Pelkman, so we can add interest, we can decide how we're gonna come up with a calculation to charge Melbourne. Maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe the thing is you just take the current truck that we're buying, they pay 48% of that, and where it ends up, I'm just trying to think about, they're gonna get a 2-year-old vehicle. So I think we need to be fair that way. So if we add interest to it, then we add interest to it. That would be up to council how they want to sort of direct staff to sort of calculate that payment. But I think they're on the hook for 48% of what we're paying. In essence, that's how the agreement would read in my mind. So therefore, that's why we're sort of doing the way it is right now.
We'll go to Councillor Parkman, then I got you, okay?
So I would suggest then that we apply the interest rate that would have been borrowed from the standard place that we borrow from, because we're borrowing for other things that we might not have had to. So what's that at the 4.5% or 5%?
Yeah, I think it was, it'd be less than what it is today, so I'd have to go back and look at what the rate was back when. So we originally brought that here to council as a loan. We decided not to do that, just repay ourselves, so I can go back to that interest rate. It was in that report, so I could easily take that interest rate, which would have been in that report, and use that interest rate.
Does that satisfy Councillor? Okay. Councillor Derbyshire.
Sorry, just before we make that motion, do they have an option, Southwest Middlesex, or no? They just get dictated what we're doing, and then that's what it is. So if I were sitting in their seat, I would say, I want the new truck. If that's what I'm doing. We're giving them an old truck, or no, I know it's only 2 years old. But we're saying this works out better for us in our operation, the way we'd like to do this. You know, at some point, we have to kind of be good neighbors. I have no problem making them make the payment on the new truck if they're fine with taking the old truck. That way you're covering the interest on that. This came about because we found a deal and we want to move forward. So we're already doing no interest on our own thing. We're not collecting it. Like it's, I don't know, it just kind of, to me, if they're getting the new truck, then I understand them paying the interest. The old truck, we weren't collecting interest on it anyways. So, you know, we're eating it as it is.
We have a couple directions. If somebody wants to make a motion, that's the best way to deal with this. Before we get, did you have a comment, Chief Beasley?
Well, again, my only comment would be that whichever way that this goes forward, we are putting improved apparatus into Station 3. It will be improved service for both. Obviously, Strathroy-Caradoc is the one that we care about the most, but they're going to be improved service for Southwest as well. The finance part of it, you know, quite frankly, that's something that's what you guys do. But whichever way that this works out, this is going to be better for everybody.
Councillor, sorry, I said Councillor Pelkman, we'll go to Councillor Heppel.
Sorry, so through yourself, actually I'm not sure. So do they have an option to say no though? So like they've already said yes, we're in a plan, we've got a 5-year, I mean, and they've said yes to everything, but if we come back and we say, okay, we agreed to everything, but we're going to charge you interest, by council has just decided that would make sense. Do they have an option to opt out and say, you know what, we don't want to do this anymore? Like, I don't know, this is what I'm saying, like, is that a possibility?
Through the chair to Councillor Hippel, so my understanding is we've already had discussions about replacing the truck, so they know the truck's coming. They just, now what's happened is we've got a different deal, which is actually less. So either way, it's less money than what they were expecting, because they were expecting 750, we've got a better deal. So both vehicles are under the 750.
Right.
So I think from that standpoint, but my understanding is that the engine 12, yes, it's 2 years older, but the capacity is bigger, so it gives them a better fire coverage, if you could do that from an accounting standpoint. So I think those are the things, and I'm trying to be, listening to Councillor Derbyshire, I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to make this fair all the way around. And that was kind of how I came up with what we did.
Councillor Palkman, then I'll make it.
So when you're making that calculation, though, that would be, we've already made the first 2 years of payments, so they're not making those 2 years of payments, right? It's just from this point forward.
We've only made, we haven't made a payment yet because last year it would have come into account in 2020, so we've only made one payment, so to ourselves. So it's really one payment. It's again, these typical ones where it's Infrastructure Ontario, so it's a year after the fact. We've already paid for the vehicle that we're making our payments to ourselves on, but yeah.
Councillor Kennison, I'm gonna make the motion.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, we in essence have paid for that engine 12 already, so, I mean, to me, the option then is Southwest, if it's engine 12, they pay cash, just like we did. Or if they want to borrow money from us, then they pay interest on that money, so that's, yeah.
Okay. Council's mind, can I bring the motion first, so to purchase the truck, then we continue, and if necessary, the discussion about how we pay for it. So the motion is that council approve the purchase of one Paragon 1200 Freightliner Maxi Metal Pumper from Commercial Emergency Equipment Company of Woodstock, Ontario, in the amount of $649,930,000 plus HST. Someone to bring the motion, Councillor Hippel, second by Councillor Kennis. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Now, if we want to have the discussion about payment, I just thought we'd get that out of the way, Council. Was there any motion? Councillor Palkman.
I'll make the motion that we secure payment from Southwest Middlesex if they want the annual payment that we charge them, the interest rate from, what you call it, Ontario Infrastructure?
Yep.
Was there a second to your motion? Councillor Brennan, any questions or comments? Councillor Wilsey.
I just want to make the comment that when we did buy this engine, it was approximately $1 million out of our reserves. So charging them $684 is depreciated fair value, so it already does reflect that it's a 2-year-old truck because it's $300,000 off the new price that we paid for it. Just so that all of council's on the same page with depreciation and costs, and that the new truck is actually, I believe, a custom cab one that we ordered previously. So it's the one that we actually wanted to get from Melbourne that's like 1.2 million now, but because it's 2 years older, it's worth $684 on our books. So.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, Councillor Palkman and Brennan. Can we just clarify the motion for the minutes?
That we, if Southwest Middlesex wishes to make annual payments, that we charge them the going rate for Ontario Infrastructure.
Councillor Derbyshire.
So, which means we're making the decision to put engine 12 into Melbourne. When we go we need to have our stuff in order before we go and talk to them. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go over with 3 options and say, you can either, if we put this engine in your haul, you owe us this, this payment plan. If we put this engine in, you can either pay it all up front or you can eat interest for this long.
I understand what you're saying.
You're starting to give options as to how you can do this, but the option isn't what truck you want. That's kind of, I don't know. To me, I would just make a decision, have one thing set out and decide and go forward, as opposed to options.
Yeah.
Through the chair, so what I heard, I think, from the resolution, the piece that, as Councillor Derbyshire is saying, is the resolution needs to specify the truck. And then I think then the clerk could read it back to ensure that that is correct with council. So whichever truck council wishes to include in that, I think it needs to be specified in the resolution.
Right, but we're not making the operational decision. We're just gonna say in the motion, if it is this truck, this is what they pay, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, through the chair, the council, I think that, yeah, the operational decision needs to be made. And we're gonna have, if we agree to purchase, there's still gonna be some time between that apparatus arrives, and then we can clearly make that operational decision at that time.
And then come back with.
And then come back with that.
Sorry, did you?
I was just gonna say, my distinction was, have a decision before you go and see them.
Yeah.
Don't go down there and be like, well, we might put this one in, which is gonna, we either want cash or it's this, but if we decide to put this one in, like, we need to have our ducks in a row, because then if it's the new one that we decide to put down there, then they're only making the payment plan the same thing we would. There's not that option to pay cash up front.
So just so we give, yeah, I agree, so just,
And the other side of it is, we already had the discussion with them about putting it over 10 years, right? So now we're gonna go back to them and say, yeah, you can put it over 10 years, but this is the new rate, and like, did you have that discussion about price or anything, or just how it was going?
Through the chair to Councilor Derbyshire, so I did say that it's a council decision whether they want the money up front or payment
Okay.
plan. So I said the door is open, I haven't said which way we're headed yet. So I just, they would prefer to make the annual payments. And I said, when we come to that point, then we'll talk about that, but we haven't committed either way yet.
so we have a motion, go ahead.
So the motion still reads okay, that if they're gonna make annual payments, we're gonna charge interest, that's all I'm saying. I don't
Yep.
care which truck it's on, it's irrelevant.
Right, got it. Do a second motion, all in favor, opposed, if any, carried. Thank you, chief, you have a new truck, go and have fun.
Again, thanks very much for interjecting us at such short notice.
Council may move into closed session at 4:30 PM for the purpose of discussing the following. One item pursuant to section 239(2)I of the Municipal Act as amended regarding a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. The service delivery review tender. Motion to go into closed session. Councilor Pammer, Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Carried. Okay, closed session adjourned at 5:09, and open session resumed. We met in closed session to discuss one item pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. And motion that the direction in closed session be approved. Councilor Brennan, second by the Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw, Brandon?
Sure, this evening, the only bylaw before us is bylaw number 5024, which is to confirm the proceedings of the May 13th special meeting of council.
Okay. Motion to confirm the bylaw, Councilor Falkman, second by Councilor Brennan, all in favor, carried. Motion to adjourn at 5:10, Councilor Brennan, Councilor Kennis, all in favor, carried.